Hello, I'm Chris Bullen. I'm the Chief Security Officer for Q1 Labs, and today we're going to be demoing our security intelligence platform for you. Security intelligence is the art of taking the massive amounts of data that you're collecting in your environment and boiling it down to just a small amount of actionable offenses that you need to send someone out to investigate or to remediate, basically do incident response. So QRadar was actually built from the ground up with not only scalability and the ability to provide total visibility into your environment, but also to avoid the crushing complexity that's traditionally associated with security information and event management, or SIEM. So before we get into our demo, I want to talk a little bit about how that actually helps your business. So Q1 Labs solves customer problems by, first off, detecting threats that other solutions miss. We do that through providing visibility throughout your entire environment, which also means consolidating your data silos so we can collect, archive, and analyze the data from all over your environment. It actually also has the effect, in some cases, of helping to bring those silos together in a cooperative manner. So QRadar can actually affect your culture as well as your technology. One of the things that QRadar can also do is help you detect insider fraud, something that's fairly high on the minds of people after the WikiLeaks incident, which ultimately, even though it was, we think of it as maybe national security problem, it's also an insider threat. It's a traditional problem that many businesses face right now. So while traditional SIEMs are very good at helping to detect exploits when they're occurring and to some extent do investigative or forensics activities against it, QRadar actually can help you predict risks against your business before they actually start and provide a full life cycle of security and compliance. And so finally, compliance. Compliance is one of the major reasons for implementing log management, but when you also have SIEM, it's like a sledgehammer against that check mark. So there's an enormous amount of incremental capability that you can leverage with QRadar to solve your business problems beyond compliance. So we talked a little bit about the full life cycle of security. And again, what traditional SIEMs are good at is the exploit phase and to some extent the remediation and the forensics. But when you start putting context before an exploit actually happens and do some predictive analysis, then you have coverage across the entire life cycle, and you can also detect zero-day exploits. In fact, we have done that in many customers, finding things that antivirus hasn't detected because the signatures haven't been updated yet. So we provide the entire suite of lifecycle security. Now, QRadar also provides the most intelligent, the most integrated, and the most automated solution on the market today. One of the ways that we do that, the intelligence, is through proactive threat management, which basically means that, of course, we look for things before they become a problem in your environment. We do massive data reduction, taking billions of records per day and boiling them down to just things you need to pay attention to so you can keep your staff at the lowest possible level. And also give you the ability through just simple mouse clicks to do rapid impact analysis. What happened? Where did it happen? How much effort do I need to expend to remediate it? So that's part of the operational intelligence, but getting it operational is one of those albatrosses that's been a problem for a traditional SIEM. So we always hear about how long it takes to get it up and whether or not there's value to the business. Well, QRadar solves that through automation. We actually make it exceedingly simple to get up and running. We automate a lot of the tasks, such as discovering your assets. We have predefined rules. It makes the process simple. In fact, in most customer cases, QRadar is providing value within a couple of days and almost all cases within a week. And finally, it's integrated. There are no bolt-on components. It is all built from the ground up from Q1 Labs. So there are no silos. In fact, around the product, we can help bring in different silos in your environment together around it. It's almost like a cloud component for your organization. And QRadar, we continue to innovate and add new components to it, again, through one single pane of glass. So it is future-proof. It is an investment that works for you now, and it will continue to work for you as long as you continue to find business use cases. So before we get into the demo, how does QRadar accomplish this? So as I mentioned before, QRadar takes in telemetry from across your entire enterprise, just the massive amounts of data from everywhere, from your firewalls, from your IDSs, from your identity management systems, and also context, such as from your VA scanners. We bring all that together and we normalize the data so that you don't have to know what the format is, and you can create queries across multiple systems and say, hey, I want to find out what user failed authentication, and you don't have to know what that looks like in a firewall, what it looks like in Active Directory. will take that for you. So we do the normalization. We also categorize the data for you. And what that means is we make it very easy for you to write rules against data across your entire environment. And they're very simple, but they're also very powerful. And what that provides is the ability for you to predict risk, to detect fraud, to comply with regulatory mandates, for example, like PCI, detect threats both inside and outside, and also to consolidate your data silos. So bring together all the system owners who are feeding data into QRadar itself. And then obviously from a compliance perspective, we have coverage across just about every mandate that you're concerned with: PCI, GLBA, SOX, even European compliance mandates such as GPG 13 and Code of Connection, or COCO. And now I'd like to introduce our Chief Technology Officer, Sandy Bird, who's going to go through a demo of QRadar and show you how it provides business value.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Sandy Bird, the Chief Technology Officer of Q1 Labs. Today I'm going to walk you through the different products of the QRadar Security Intelligence Platform. We're going to start off with the Log Manager product, where we're going to look at how you would meet compliance mandates with that, how you would do log collection from multiple different sources within your organization. Then we're going to move into the QRadar SIM product, where we're going to look at doing some use cases around advanced threat detection, around deep correlation, and how you use that product to do things like track identity. Then we're going to move into the risk management product, which is really going to try to bring us from what happens from a post-exploit perspective into the pre-exploit perspective, where we're actually going to look and see how you could prevent exploits from actually affecting your organization. So first, let's take a look at the Log Manager product. As you can see, when we log into the system, it's a web-based UI. It makes it very easy for the customer to have access to this. Now, it is a role-based UI where the customer will only have access to the data that they need. So if you have a PCI auditor, they're going to be logging into this to get information. Only the things that they need access to will be here. So the logs, as an example, from the actual PCI devices will be shown. Now, if they want to actually examine any of this information, as an example here, we have a graph of some services being denied through a firewall. We can actually highlight this, say I'm very interested in this particular spike of traffic that's happening. We can see it's actually on port 22 in this case. Maybe I actually want to drill into that to see what the details are like. So as you can see, it's now highlighted the details of that. We can see that port 22 is the most common used port for this particular spike that's happening. I can drill down into the details of that, see here that it is port 22. There's over 14 unique source IPs using that port. And if I want the details on those, I can simply click on it. So now we can see all 14 of those IP addresses, including which one created most of those particular events. In this case, this top IP address, 6119, is the one that's actually causing all that. It happens to be from Thailand in this case. And I can actually drill into the actual underlying events that caused this. Looking at the details of those events, I can see that they're firewall denies, very high event counts on each one of them. The great thing about the QRadar log management platform is, while we're actually normalizing all of this data, so when this particular event arrives from checkpoint, QRadar determines that it is a firewall deny. It properly categorizes it, which makes it easy to build reports cross-device. It normalizes things like the IP addresses, pulls in contextual information like the fact that this box is in Thailand, but it also keeps the original events themselves, including the original payload of those events. So you're not losing anything. From a compliance perspective, the full details of everything that QRadar has received are here. We also actually sign all of these events so that in the case that you need to take them and use them in court, you actually have a full audit trail of what has happened. Reporting is obviously a key feature within the log management platform. As you can see, QRadar has a number of reports out of the box. Most of those reports are built around compliance standards or around specific device reporting. So you can see things in here for PCI and NERC and HIPAA. But as you scroll down through this, you'll see we'll also have specific reports on things like antivirus platforms, operating systems, databases, etc. From any of these given report groups, you can choose a number of different reports that will apply to your given organization, and you can choose to run those reports on a periodic basis. The platform also has a full reporting engine built into it in a wizard, so you can build very specific reports around your needs. One of the key benefits of the QRadar log management platform is that with a simple license key upgrade, it can be upgraded to the full SIM platform. QRadar SIM expands on the log manager capabilities by adding a whole new set of functions around threat management, asset tracking, vulnerability management. We're going to go through some use cases to kind of show each of those different cases. As you can see, the dashboard here is very similar to the log management dashboard, but adds a whole new set of features that are not necessarily available in Log Manager. First of all, the users that may be using this now may be SOC operators that need to deal with very specific threats. They may have very specific devices that they want to isolate information to, and they may want to even highlight very specific security threats for certain areas of the network on the dashboard. However, the functionality of using the dashboard is very similar. You can basically highlight anything that you care about and then deal with going directly into that set of data to do investigations with. You can also highlight things like what are the top types of categories for threats that are happening at the given point in time. One of the critical features of the QRadar SIM is really about event reduction. Typically, these systems are collecting billions of logs a day, and we need to get that down to a point where an operator is dealing with some set of incidents that are happening in the numbers of 10 to 20. QRadar does this by actually taking all of that data and correlating it into a single offense. As you can see here, we have a number of different offenses of different types happening, and the numbers of events in these can rank into the hundreds or even thousands. As we take a look at these particular incidents, though, and maybe we'll take a look at this top one, they're ranked by something called magnitude, where we can actually see how relevant the actual incident is to your organization. Maybe it's against a critical server. How severe is the incident? Maybe somebody's actually running an exploit against a system, or they've actually successfully exploited it. Or maybe it has a low severity. It's somebody doing a simple ICMP sweep across the network. And how credible is that data? Because the SIM has great context around all the data it's collecting from different devices, it knows that if this attack is seen by one or two devices, it's probably less credible than if it's seen by several different devices of different types of categories. Let's drill into an offense and take a look at how this works. You can see here, there's literally 20,000 events from this given attacker against the different targets in this particular offense. So we're literally summarizing the fact that this particular attacker has attacked over 315 different targets of the given network. We can also see here we've pulled in other contextual information, like the fact that this particular box is sitting in China. If I want to go and look at the specific details of any of those given events, it's as easy as me coming down, looking at the different log sources that are generating the events, looking at the different types of event categories that are happening, and I can actually go in and view the details. So here, looking at the buffer overflows, we can see the very specific events here coming out of Snort. And again, we can go in and look at the very specific details of those if we want to. We can also see, going back to the offense summary, that a number of the different systems that were involved actually have vulnerabilities against them. If we want to go in and look at those vulnerabilities, it's as easy as right-clicking on the host and actually coming down to its asset profile and looking at those details. Here we can see this particular host is actually running Windows Server 2008. I can actually scroll down and look at the individual vulnerabilities on the individual ports of the system, and I can even drill into further details there. The QRadar SIM product, due to its network activity, has the ability to also deal with some very complex threats. It actually uses external information sources to detect things like botnet propagation, connections to command and control channels, domains that are known to distribute malware, and it tracks all of that. On top of that, it's doing detailed application detection and even some content capture within the actual network communications itself. This is a scenario where the system is detected, as an example, IRC communications. Now, sometimes those are used for command and control to a botnet control channel, and we're actually going to drill into this offense and see how the system detected it. You can see that it actually detected it as IRC, and as we actually look at this, it's a system inside connecting to a remote host. That in itself with IRC in an organization that's an enterprise is probably suspicious enough to draw your attention. Because the system has so much great identity data, though, tracking this particular asset, we know Jeremy is actually the person that's actually running on the machine right now. We can actually even see the MAC address of the end machine that he's doing this from. And if I want to go in and look at the underlying details of those network communications, I can simply click Flows. Looking at the underlying flows, we can see here he's connecting to a number of IRC servers in a number of different continents. But what's interesting about this is the destination port is port 80. Now, if we were using something like NetFlow traffic, we wouldn't actually know that this is IRC. But because the QRadar SIM has actual QFlow collectors, which are probes placed on the network, it can actually analyze the application content that's going across the communication to determine that this actually is IRC traffic, as you can see here, and not actually web traffic. As we go in and look at one of these communications, we can give you even more detail around the incident though. Not only is this IRC running on port 80, I can actually see the underlying IRC communications, the usernames, the channels that were joined, etc. in the underlying details of the actual flow, which gives the operator of the SOC the ability to do deep level forensics on this particular incident. In another scenario, QRadar SIM may be being used to actually track data transit inside the organization as well as inside the organization to the outside. And through that packet analysis that we do, we can track all kinds of things. In this example, we'll look at something as simple as maybe a social insurance number or a credit card number, but it gives you the ability to look for anything that you want to. So in this particular scenario, we have a user, in this case it's Liz, as you can see here, sending some sensitive data across the network, and it's leaving the network going to a system outside, which we may be worried about. So this actually allows us to go in and see exactly what Liz is doing. Now, if we go and look at these particular flows, we'll see very quickly here that this particular flow that's highlighted is actually a flow going to Facebook. Now, we know that not just because it's a web communication, but we know it by looking actually inside the content itself. However, that's not what tripped this offense. What tripped this offense was the fact that she was transferring something that's considered sensitive. And in this example, we've chosen to highlight something like a social insurance number. Here you can see we've actually extracted fields out of those underlying packets and turned them into actual fields that can be used for correlation, reporting, or anything else that you want to use inside of QRadar SIM. But you can clearly see the actual transit of things like the social insurance number or the credit card number in these particular cases. Anything that's actually inside the payload can be turned into a field and be used through the entire product. QRadar SIM has a function to actually track all of these assets. You can access it by going to the Asset tab. And very quickly now, we can actually track identity through the whole system. Maybe I actually want to understand all the different systems that admin is currently logged into as an example. I can quickly search for that. As you can see, this is tracking every machine that admin is currently logged into, as well as a lot of other details around those given hosts. We can actually drill into one of these to see the additional details. So as an example, in this case, this is a Windows box. You can see the MAC address that we've actually acquired through maybe DHCP logs. You can actually see that the operating system was detected by a scanner, maybe something like Qualys or Encircle. And we can go down and look at the details of which ports are open and closed as well. You'll see some of these are discovered actively from a scanner, but they may also be discovered passively from the flows. We've also tied the vulnerabilities to those individual systems, and we can actually pull a full history of everybody that's ever logged into this machine. Here we can see Lewis is also logged into this particular machine, as well as admin. QRadar SIM also helps solve your compliance mandate problems, and we ship over 1,600 reports out of the box with QRadar to help you with that. You can see there's compliance mandates around multiple different types of compliance regulations, whether they be NERC, FERC, HIPAA, PCI. Maybe we want to highlight just PCI as an example. When you go into the PCI reports, many of these will be set up for you out of the box. You can then take any one of those reports and drill into the details of it. So as an example here, maybe we'll take a look at this one, looking at internal network going to the internet. So maybe we want to drill down on the details of the internal traffic going to the internet. Simply clicking on the PDF icon allows us to bring up that report. Another key feature of QRadar SIM is being able to consolidate multiple different data silos into a single platform. Many organizations will have an NBAD product sitting beside their SIM doing profiling of the network, understanding the network activity. QRadar SIM brings that all into a single platform. You can see here the Network Activity tab highlights all of the different network activity going on and actually pulls that together into basically sessions monitoring the different applications, every different user's using, and what they're using it for, where it's going. There's lots of different things you can do with this beyond just profiling of the traffic. You can use it for visualization. You can actually use it for actually generating the offenses for different policy issues. So let's go in and take a quick look at some of the different types of things you can do. As an example, maybe we want to see what countries our traffic is going to. You can come down here to our Save Search for top countries. We see a large amount of traffic to a specific region. You can highlight that region, isolate that traffic, query it, and see that the continent of Asia, the country of Japan, has a large amount of traffic being transferred back and forth to our network. There's only 6 applications, those, that are actually used to that. If I want to see what those applications are, I can simply click on this. Here we see a large amount of that traffic actually is peer-to-peer file sharing. And if I want to go in and see which sources from our network are actually doing this, it's as easy as clicking on the source IPs. The power of the QRadar SIM, it's able to tie identity information to other information like the network activity. So we can see here this source that's actually doing the peer-to-peer file sharing is actually Carl. Adding Risk Manager to QRadar SIM is as simple as installing an additional appliance that leverages all of the data that the QRadar SIM has already collected, but it uses the exact same interface that you're using for all of your other log management and SIM activity. QRadar Risk Manager adds some new functionality to the QRadar SIM platform by collecting a whole new data source around configuration data. Now, as you can see, that adds a new tab to the QRadar platform where you get access to the configuration data, topology, and a few new functions in terms of analysis. It also adds functions back in the Offense Manager tab and in the Asset tab, allowing us to investigate offenses and look at attack paths through our network. First, let's take a look at the actual configuration collection from the QRadar Risk Manager. When we look at the configuration monitor, we'll have a number of different devices being pulled in here. Q1 Labs as a company has been doing device normalization for years back in the log activity. We've extended that function to the configuration of endpoint devices and configuration of network devices. So if we take a look at the config from a normal firewall here, it may look a lot like this. A bunch of textual representation written into rules that would have to be manually interpreted. However, with the QRadar Risk Manager platform, we can take that and normalize all of that data into easy, human-readable rules that understand that, hey, there's a list called deny all, it's an action is a drop, and it's going to allow any source to any destination in this given device. Configuration Monitor also allows you to compare configurations between devices. I may choose to go into Firewall 1, mark a given device for config compare, then go back, choose a completely different device, and compare this particular device's config with the previously marked device. Any differences will be highlighted, and it's very easy to compare. After QRadar Risk Manager collects the configuration, it builds a model of your network. You can see here a number of devices are basically being placed in the model. We can click on any of those to see the actual configuration of those devices, or link back to the QRadar SIM platform or log management platform to see the underlying devices' events. Now we know that we may not be able to get all of the config from every device in your network. However, by utilizing the network activity and the underlying flows, we can fill in the gaps that would often be left. Once the model's been built, the user can go in and run policy monitor questions against this to make sure there are no risky protocols being run and no given vulnerabilities that are exposed to a risk that the network allows. As an example, we might want to understand what vulnerabilities should be prioritized in certain areas of the network. So maybe I want to look at top vulnerabilities in a current area. So we'll take the user network here, and we'll look for vulnerabilities which have a CVSS score higher than 8. The results show a number of different systems. Again, using the power of QRadar, we can link the users and machine and other information to those given assets. We can also see exactly which vulnerabilities are on those assets as well. These are systems that you would typically want to address fairly quickly. We may want to understand devices that are actually allowing risky protocols to be used in the network. Again, this same engine, Policy Monitor, allows us to go in and find specific rules and specific devices that maybe are allowing things that are risky. As an example here, maybe we don't allow connections on this particular port, and maybe we're interested in one specifically around some protected assets in the network. Simply submitting this question shows us exactly which devices allow that type of communication through the network. Risk Manager also allows you to simulate attacks through your network and actually change the way your topology exists to see if a change that you make would actually impact how a vulnerability propagates. Let's do a simple example where we take an unknown SSH vulnerability and allow it to propagate through the network. This particular scenario has a bunch of results associated with it. And on the first step of this particular attack, a small number of machines may be exploited. However, once those machines have been exploited, there's a whole new set of machines that are at risk. and we can see those machines by proceeding to the next step of the simulation. This, of course, builds a model of all of this, and I can basically pull up the details of any given system to see what the details and vulnerabilities of that system are. So that concludes our Risk Manager demo. Let me hand it back to Chris.
So now that Sandy's shown you the power of QRadar and how easy it is to solve your business problems with it, I'd like to show you how easy it is to deploy and expand at the pace that you find comfortable for your business. QRadar starts with Log Manager at its most basic level, which is expandable from small organizations to full-blown enterprises. And the great thing about Log Manager is that you can expand it to full-blown SIM with a simple license key upgrade. So you've also seen in the demo how the power of SIM, so you understand its benefits, and also Risk Manager. So you can add those incrementally, and not only that, but you can expand it throughout your entire enterprise. We can grow vertically to expand to hundreds of thousands of events per second and flows per interval. We can also expand horizontally to cover your entire geography. Worldwide deployments are easy with QRadar. You can keep adding as you grow your organization. We also have high availability solution, which is important for many organizations who are coming to rely on log management and SIM for their security as the cornerstone of their security operations. And finally, with cloud computing, of course, on everyone's mind, we also have vFlow, which can monitor your virtual environment as well. So the benefit to organizations who buy QRadar is that you get your entire security management in one pane of glass. So there are no bolt-ons. It's for many of our customers, it's where they log into in the morning and they log out of at night, and they rely on it to secure their business. So we've shown that QRadar is the most intelligent, the most integrated, and the most automated solution on the market today. So what that means for your business is that QRadar provides the cornerstone of your security intelligence program, providing total visibility across your entire enterprise. Because it's automated, it helps you deploy quickly and not be crippled by using too many resources and actually getting it operationalized, which has been an albatross for traditional SIMs. And QRadar is the most integrated solution, which means that it's massively scalable, but the fact of the architecture is hidden from you through a single pane of glass. So as you're addressing your needs for security and compliance, you should be looking for a solution that provides the anchor tenant for your security program that can detect threats before, during, and after an incident. If you have any questions, press the Ask a Question button on your player. And thank you for your time.